In this section, we're looking at composite functions. Composite functions, the fundamentals you have to understand goes back to something we talked about earlier in the semester, and that is simply evaluating functions. So if I look at this function, f of x equals 1 over x plus 2, and I say, what is f of 1? That literally means evaluate this function at the x value of 1. So that would mean 1 over 1 plus 2. So I had this value 1, and I plugged it in where x was, so right there. And then I look at that and evaluate that, clean that up, and that gives me 1 over 3. So f of 1 equals 1/3. I could find f of 2. I could plug in 2 for x. I could plug in 10 for x, f of 10, and that'd be 1 over 10 plus 2, or 1/12. I could plug in negative numbers, positive numbers, but I could also plug in things like negative x. So if you think back to when you learned about symmetry, and you learned about odd and even functions, we would plug in negative x sometimes. And so I would have 1 over negative x plus 2. And that doesn't actually become something nice and neat. It's just 1 over negative x plus 2. I could plug in negative x, I could plug in x squared, I could plug in other variables altogether. So like f of y. Oops, not negative x, I already did that. Y. And when you look at all that these have in common, it's simply that we're plugging in whatever's in there. We're plugging that in. Well, we can also plug in other functions. I could do this, f of g of x. As in, I'm going to take the g function, and I'm going to plug it into the x function. And so what that would look like is 1 over, and where x was, I'm now going to plug in g of x, which is x plus 1. Now, you clean it up as much as you can. This would be 1 over x plus 3. And it may not clean up. It may not. It may still be kind of ugly. But here's the thing. You can plug in f of g of x, but you can also plug f into itself. I could plug in f of x. I can plug in whatever I'm going to plug in. And so these can get real ugly, because where x is, I'm now plugging in x, or f of x. I'm plugging it into itself. I can plug the f function into the g function. We can do whatever it says to do. So instead of x plus 1, this right here, I'm going to plug the f function in where x is, and so that's 1 over x plus 2 plus 1. We can plug anything into anything, the f function to the g function into the f function into itself, the g function into itself. We can plug in all these things. Your job is to simply follow the instructions given by plugging in what's inside the parentheses into the function that came first, the function that's outside the parentheses. Now, a little bit of conventions, how this is written. A lot of times you will see it written like this. This right here means this. It means plug the g function into the f function. Sometimes it's written like this. You'll see that in the textbook. This right here, oops, let me clean that up. That right there would be this right here, the f function being plugged into the f function. So note that this is not a dot. It is an open circle. It's a little open circle, kind of like a dot. It's small. But this collectively is just another way of writing what we already know from evaluating functions. Now, I will tell you personally, a million times over, I would prefer writing it. I would prefer writing it like this. I think that's much more intuitive and has continuity with what we know about evaluating functions anyway. But you will see it both ways, so just be aware of that and know they mean the same thing.